Hola, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Aquí estamos en las semifinales de la Congressional Cup, en el estadio de la Congressional Cup, que estamos aquí en Long Beach. Pues en este momento estamos viendo a David Hood y al canadiense Whitworth, que bueno, va prácticamente de último en la clasificación. Whitworth ha ganado solo una prueba con Collie Taper, que prácticamente Collie Taper pues también es ha ganado el 43% de los enfrentamientos. Bueno, como vemos, las condiciones muy difíciles. Estamos teniendo unas condiciones bastante complicadas. Aquí, como vemos, con muy poquito viento y las tripulaciones ajustando como se pueden. Pero bueno, esto es match race. Y como es match race, pues prácticamente estamos haciendo lo que se puede. Se está haciendo lo que se puede en este... Vamos a subir. A ver. Ahora mismo son las 11, las 10:30 de la noche. En Long Beach son las 12. Sí, las 12, la 1:30. Y ahí están, llegando a lo que es, pasando la puerta, hacia... Ya vemos que están izando ya el Génova de Proa para intentar, ahí está uno haciendo el Tango Man y bueno, ya recogiendo el speed, la tripulación del equipo canadiense. David Hood, el estadounidense, pues bueno, David Hood está prácticamente en semifinales. David Hood ha ganado el 57% de sus enfrentamientos. Está corriendo ahora, ha ganado 4, 1, 2, 4 y ha perdido 3. Teniendo este mismo resultado, de ahora que estamos viendo ahora mismo, ganaría 4, se quedaría en el 50% de todos sus enfrentamientos, le quedaría un enfrentamiento más con, sería Borg Hansen. Y para Whitworth ahora mismo está con David Hood y le quedaría uno más, que sería el Rocco Tillit, el italiano. Como vemos, que sería prácticamente Whitworth solo ha ganado uno, que como decíamos a Collie Taper. Y bueno, pues nada, aquí están sufriendo como se lleva este tipo de regatas, que son regatas bastante complicadas y que dan bastante más problema que las regatas de mucho viento, porque hay que ser muy técnico. Ya vemos ahí, pues bueno, aquí Whitworth está llevando la rueda del timón de este Catalina, comentando, buscando viento por todos lados, a ver si puede terminar. De momento, pues vemos que debe de haber entre 1 y 2, 3 nudos. Prácticamente ni... Parece que ahora flamea un poquito más la bandera del barco. Parece que está teniendo un poquito más de presión. Pero de momento está muy complicado, está bastante complicado este tema, está muy difícil. Aquí, como vemos, pues todos los tripulantes están yendo a la parte de sotavento, ¿no? A la parte donde está, en este caso, la mayor. Y ahí está David Hood con Chris Steele, que está metido en la cabina. Pues Chris Steele buscando, es el táctico de a bordo, intentando buscar. David Hood es el que está a la caña, no, este es otra persona que está aquí. Y lo tiene complicado, ahí está con mucha ventaja en este momento. Bueno, David Hood está ya a barlovento del todo. Ahora está virando, poniéndose amurado a estribor. Vamos a ver cómo va la racha de viento. Y ya decimos nosotros que esto es, ya sabemos lo que es match race. Y como el match race se compite en estas condiciones, pues no hay, tienes que saber competir así. No necesariamente tiene que haber un viento entablado con una intensidad concreta. Bueno, va así de esa manera. Vemos que aquí Whitware está... Whitware... va caminando, no veo las distancias, va a iniciar la virada en este momento. Pues aquí están los componentes de toda de la embarcación de Whitware, Macmillan, Steve Flang, el canadiense, Travis Odenbach, Savamant Taylor, James Wayborn. Bueno, prácticamente pues ahí están todos los tripulantes a la parte de sotavento, al lado de... Y aún así prácticamente no llevan ninguna escora. El que va de pie ahí atrás, como veíamos, es el cámara. Es el único que va ahí aguantando el tipo. Estamos aquí con David Hood, de estadounidense, es un gran veterano en estas lides. Y David Hood va con Ted Hackney, Chris Main, Rich Garber, Steve Navig y Chris Steele, que vamos, prácticamente Chris Steele lleva ahí, es la persona que está metido ahí en cabina, todos los pesos muy a proa, todos muy tapados. Estuvo lloviendo durante un rato, pero ha calmado la lluvia. Aquí está David Hood, ya ganador en una ocasión de la Congressional Cup. Y parece que desde esta cámara de a bordo de David Hood parece que va mejor, me parece que le va a pasar en principio por la prueba parece que hay, bueno, parece que tenemos un poquito más de intensidad de viento, hay un poquito más de viento. Vamos a seguir, está la línea general, están los 8 barcos navegando, los match son, ahí va por flies, cada fly tiene 4 enfrentamientos. Entonces, bueno, pues aquí está de ahora, fíjese, prácticamente desde la cámara de a bordo del David Hood, pues sí, va a pasar por la proa, de hecho ya están preparando para virar, les van a virar ahí justo ahí a sotavento. David Hood está en esta virada, pero no es el ley line, todavía no da ley line. Una mirada un poquito complicada. Yo no sé si es que desde, claro, con la vista, viendo la imagen desde aquí, pues no se ve muy bien si pasaba o no pasaba. Ay, es que ya prácticamente ya va a ley line, sí, ahí está la baliza verde. Ya vemos otros barcos que están ahí haciendo el match, ahí está forzando la ceñida David Hood, y bueno, va otra vez el equipo canadiense ahí forzando un poquito más de viento. Ahí están ya dentro, deben de estar dentro de las 2 esloras de baliza. Ahí están forzando, no están entrando aún ahora, pero parece que va un poquito más forzado el equipo de David Hood. Ahí vamos a ver, ya están preparando la maniobra del tangón, ya para izarlo al llegar a la baliza, están ahí haciendo la maniobra. La arribada, están arribando ya a toda velocidad, todos los tripulantes están preparando para izarlo. Ahí está Chris Steele con la mayor, les ha quitado media eslora. Whitware está tomando la baliza, muy ajustada a la baliza, casi, hasta ahí está ya dando indicaciones Chris Steele para que modifique, hay algo para que corrija. Chris Steele ya navega, es un profesional de esto de hace mucho tiempo y tiene muchísima experiencia. Prácticamente Chris Steele le lleva, es el táctico y le lleva al barco ahí. Esta es la maniobra de la trasluchada. Bueno, realmente Wigware es el que traslucha y le marca Davy Hood o posiblemente, no he visto la maniobra completa, pero yo creo que es Davy Hood quizá que traslucha y el otro le mantiene ahí la posición, ahí en delante. No sé, para no, como vemos, muy orzados, con el tangón prácticamente apoyado, no apoyado totalmente, pero sí muy cerquita del stay, del cable de proa, y parece que, bueno, pues de momento aquí Wigware está manteniendo este sotavento, lo está aguantando bien. David Hood va un poquito a barlovento, quizá forzando un poquito el barco, pero claro, aquí ya sabemos que el que gana barlovento palma. Vamos a ver si no por mucho orzar, como decíamos, se llega más temprano. Vamos a ver cómo evoluciona. Vamos a ver cómo va evolucionando. Ahí estamos viendo, son ahora mismo las 22:47 y bueno, pues la verdad que no que tengamos mucho público, también es una disciplina que no tiene un gran atractivo, sobre todo a falta de regatistas españoles. En esta disciplina no hay regatistas españoles prácticamente, hay un par de ellos que están en el ranking bastante abajo y bueno, pues la cuestión es seguir practicando, seguir intentándolo. Esto es practicar el match race es difícil y lleva un componente de calidad muy superior. Es mucho más complicado, ¿no? Es más fácil las regatas de flota. Aquí vemos como parece que se parece que se está quedando y vemos a Wigware, pues se les salta la sonrisa un poco ahí, a ver cómo va evolucionando todo, no le quita ojo, sigue manteniendo el rumbo, es un perro viejo, ya vemos que mirando para el barco, pero no mira para proa, mantiene el rumbo, está intentando visualizar algo que nosotros no vemos. Ahí parece que está cargándole un poquito más de la racha, se está llenando ya la bahía un poquito más de viento. Y ahí parece que Wigware está ahí en la parte de sotavento, está aguantándole, está aumentando la presión, cada vez hay un poquito más de brisa. Y es difícil esta navegación, ya vemos cómo van con manera de trimar, van con una delicadeza, prácticamente como vemos al compañero de Wigware, en este caso, que debe ser Dan Macmillan, ya una persona, ahí está, trasluchando Davy Hood. Vamos a ver cómo cruzando la proa el Wigware, vamos a ver qué es lo que hace. Posiblemente, no sé qué rumbo lleva, había que ver dónde estaban las balizas, estamos un poquito lejos de ver las balizas, vamos a ver cómo evoluciona. Y vuelve otra vez a trasluchar. Vuelve a trasluchar el Davy Hood. Y vamos a ver cómo creo que esta trasluchada aparentemente parece que lo ha dejado un poco clavado. 2 trasluchadas seguidas. La bandera, como vemos, ahí no flamea nada. La cámara de a bordo desde aquí pues se ve claramente bastante lejos el equipo. Bueno, hay que trasluchar. El equipo canadiense tiene que trasluchar para bajar más hacia Sota. Vamos a ver cómo hace la trasluchada. Y bueno, es una posición, vamos, aquí ahora, vamos a este momento, este es el momento clave de este enfrentamiento. Ya está trasluchado, va bien, vamos a ver cómo le pasa, ya va directo al comité, parece que va directo al comité. Sí, a él parece que la sonrisa, él se nota más seguro, ahí vamos a ver, ya le pasa al comité, yo creo que lleva mejor rumbo, yo creo que Wigwer lleva mejor rumbo hacia la línea del comité. En este momento que es la entrada. La línea está un poquito más a Sota. Aquí prácticamente no te permite abanicar mucho, porque si abanicas te pueden... bueno, prácticamente que queda 200 metros, no, menos, 100 metros de distancia para la línea de llegada. La tensión que se vive en el barco, en los dos barcos, es brutal. Está todo el mundo súper atento, súper controlando el barco. Ahí estamos viendo cómo va navegando, quizá un poquito mejor el barco de Canadá, el Speed siempre portando, la Mayor también, un poquito ondea. Whitwer no le quita ojo a David Hood. Yo creo que hay que prolongar, debe de estar ahora ya, Whitwer yo creo que está esperando un poco. Ahí está la línea, justo ahí está la baliza de la llegada, vamos, ¿no? No, esa es la baliza de la puerta. Están muy forzados, los dos barcos están forzando ahí muchísimo. Wire está ahí ya llegando a la baliza de la puerta, y la baliza de entrada, el pin, allá está traluchando David Hood, amurado a estribor, y aquí están ya el equipo canadiense muy ajustadito a David Hood haciendo la traluchada, y va a intentar forzar todo lo que pueda, a ver si portando rápidamente el espí, a ver si tiene que arrancar con rapidez porque queda prácticamente menos de una eslora. Y cuidado, porque David Hood viene muy rápido y vamos a ver cómo se gestiona esto, porque puede ganarle la posición a Sotavento. Está francamente emocionante como lo mira. De momento está un poco desventado David Hood, están viendo la proa a ver cómo entra, está bajándole Whitwer, él tiene la baliza justo ahí encima. El comité de regatas está viendo la llegada, es complicada, muy difícil, vuelve a trasluchar David Hood, pero yo creo que ya va derecho a baliza. Sí, ya está ahí, ya está entrando. Aquí está. Whitwell lo ha marcado el amarillo finish, concretamente. Y bueno, fantástica la prueba. Ha sido formidable. Vamos a ver. Bueno, como vemos, está habiendo enfrentamientos. Está la bahía de Long Beach bastante, bueno, está llena de viento, pero con poco viento. Para Whitwell esto es un punto importante, porque lo va a meter, con David Hood lo va a meter, David Hood se queda con el 50%, que era lo que hablamos, y Whitwell se queda con el 25%, y realmente el que peor lo tiene es Rocco Attilit, el italiano campeón, el campeón de Italia. La verdad es que está dando una sorpresa. No es esperado no haber ganado ni una de las pruebas. Esto es bastante complicado. Y ahí están los barcos. Prácticamente, pues nada, muy poquito viento, sufriendo mucho, evidentemente. En este tipo de pruebas son pruebas que son muy sufridas. Primero porque se alarga el target de la regata, cuando habitualmente estas regatas están entre 15 20 minutos a lo sumo. Pues bueno, pues esta hora cada match son 15 o 20 minutos cada uno. Estas al final se complican bastante más. Ahí está el francés Jean Garreta, que lleva con un 57% de los enfrentamientos, uno de los campeones de Portugal de la escuela francesa de match race, que tiene una tradición brutal en Francia. Hay muchísimos regatistas que están participando en el circuito de la World Sailing, de la clasificación en el ranking mundial de match. Hay muchísimos franceses. Y bueno, ha conseguido Jan Garreta pues el 57% de los... Prácticamente lo tiene ya, salvo a ver cómo va con este enfrentamiento. Igual si pierde con un 57%, yo creo que pasa a semifinales, pero vamos a esperar. En principio los que pasan ya son, por una parte, Chris Poole, que tiene un 100% de pruebas ganadas, match ganados. Después está Johnny Bertson, que también tiene 6. El único enfrentamiento que ha perdido fue con Chris Poole. Después tenemos con 57, no hay nadie con 60, pero con 57 está Eric Monin, está también Jan Garreta, estaba David Hood, pero ahora se ha caído al 50. Vamos, está los demás. Bueno, después está Collie Taper, que también es otro, el neozelandés, muy buen regatista de match, tiene un 43% de pruebas ganadas. Y bueno, estamos viendo a Jan Garreta, debe tener el enfrentamiento de Jan Garreta en este momento, debe ser con... Pues yo creo que debe ser Collie Taper. Collie Taper es el neozelandés que además necesita, porque está con un 43, casi se metería casi con el 50%, y hay muchos equipos con el 50%. Vamos a ver cómo evoluciona. Ahí vamos a ver ahora el barco, sí, bandera neozelandesa, en principio. Ahí está Collie Taper, barco Catalina. Este es un barco de diseño de los años 90, exclusivo para hacer exclusivo para hacer las regatas de la Congressional Cup, que es la regata esta. Bueno, ahí vamos a ver, parecía que Collie Taper estaba bastante más alejado. Ahí están abanicando un poquito el barco. Pasa que claro, un barco con 2 toneladas de peso, intentarlo abanicar es un poquito contraproducente, porque al final se mueven mucho los lastres. Y tiene una penalización Collie Taper. Estamos viendo el barco del comité de los árbitros, que tienen la bandera azul. La bandera azul significa que Collie Taper tiene que hacer una penalización, con lo cual Jan Garreta se va a meter el tercero de las semifinales, porque ya va prácticamente a a línea de llegada y le pasa bien por la proa a Collie Taper, el neozelandés, y se va a quedar Collie Taper con las ganas, con el 43%, con lo cual no tiene nada más que hacer. Me alegro por Jan Garreta, por lo menos el representante europeo que mantenemos ahí, pues es bueno tenerlo, no va a ser todo de los Estados Unidos y bueno, el sueco Johnny Bergson es también otro europeo tal que está ahí metido. Estos estamos hablando que todos son buenos espadas en esto del match y están demostrándolo aquí. Están todos estos están dentro de los 10 primeros del circuito mundial, que donde participan pues mil regatistas alrededor del mundo. Y esta es el evento, quizá uno de los eventos, además de la final del mundial, de que se celebra en China. Y salvo eso, pues también esta regata es una regata muy vistosa, con muchísimo atractivo y con muchísimos puntos y unos premios brutales. Estamos hablando que el ganador de esta prueba se va a llevar 25.000, 30.000 euros. 30.000 euros no, 30.000 dólares. Bueno, hoy con el precio que tiene el dólar va bastante a menos. Ahí está, ganó, se queda con Collie Taper, se queda con un 38%. Y Jan Garreta con un 63%, lo que le da ya la entrada directa a semifinales. Con un 63% la entrada de Jan Garreta en semifinales. Bueno, y que Jan Garreta, pues tampoco... Jan Garreta va con toda la tripulación, toda francesa, con Caliste Benoit, Thibaut Demois, Pierre Garreta, Vincent Gilidon, Mathieu Richard y Gautier Tallier. Mathieu Richard ya es un estratega brutal, un tío, como vemos, todos son franceses y bueno, con toda la tripulación totalmente francesa. Y pues todos son, pues bueno, todos de la escuela francesa de match race. Cuando estuvimos en Francia haciendo el match en Pornichet, pues bueno, nos dimos cuenta del nivel de match que existe en Francia, es brutal. Y hay la escuela del norte, la del este y la escuela del sur. Y ahí incluso tienen un circuito nacional donde participan. Es complicado participar en un campeonato de España o un campeonato de Francia, todos, ¿no? Porque el nivel es altísimo. Y ya vemos que se ha terminado este enfrentamiento, este match, y aún nos queda para hacer semifinales. Ahí está, Johnny Bertson ha perdido con Eric Monin, con lo cual 63 Eric Monin, 75 Johnny Bertson, que son los que entraron ahora mismo, y 75, 63 Jan Garreta, y después prácticamente estos van a ser los que vayan a participar, que van a ser los semifinales. Las semifinales tienen que ir 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6 justo, pues va a ir hasta yo creo que hay que decidir, aún quedan varios enfrentamientos, queda el último enfrentamiento para todos. Teóricamente Chris Poole tiene que ir con Eric Monin, Eric Monin pues con Chris Poole. Johnny Bertson tiene que ir con Jan Garreta. Esto puede ser un enfrentamiento muy bonito. Rocco Tillit, le quedan dos enfrentamientos. ¿Por qué le quedan a Rocco Tillit dos enfrentamientos? No sé. No sé si, pero deben de ser estos dos que están ahora mismo, Rocco Tillit y Chris Poole. Este es Chris Pool y Attili debe estar así, allí el fondo, la bandera italiana. Aquí está, vamos a ver si Rocco se es capaz de colocarse. Faltaba este, yo había contado que ya estaban todos dentro, faltaba uno más. Ya está aquí el campeón americano y campeón, el líder del circuito mundial, líder del ranking mundial de Match Race, pues bastante bien a sotavento del Rocco Attili, con lo cual pues lo tiene bastante fastidiado. Rocco va a perder esta también, me da coraje porque lo conozco, es un regatista buenísimo y es francamente bueno, con lo cual esto me está demostrando que la gente que está aquí pues aún es más buena todavía, porque Rocco es muy bueno y aquí pues bueno, pues está quedando bastante ojito. Vamos a ver cómo está. Pues está primero Chris Paul, ahora mismo, bueno, claro, faltan algunas. Está Chris Paul primero, el Johnny Bertson está de segundo, tercero es Eric Monin, los tres primeros están todos aquí. Nick Johnson, este está corriendo la 52 Super Series. Ian Garreta es el quinto. El Timothy Rossi no está aquí, pero es un tío formidable. Y séptimo, Rocco Attili. Rocco Attili es el séptimo del mundo en este momento del ranking. Está Aurelien Perroz, Peter Whitwer, que es el canadiense, aquí está de noveno del mundo. Después está Ian Williams, décimo. Damien Michelier, de Francia. Collie Taper, el neozelandés, está de 12. Y ya por aquí, ya no, de los primeros, el que, digamos, David Hood, por ejemplo, pues no está entre los 25 primeros. Pero ya estamos viendo que es un regatista con bastante nivel. Vamos a ver cómo aquí está Rocco. Venga, Rocco, que tú puedes. Tienes que ganarme una. Con Paolo y Yacha, Andrés Guerra, Ludovico Mori, Gianluca Perosale y Aurelien Pierroz. A ver. Bueno, pues ahí están llegando ya Rocco y Chris Pool. Está entrando ahora Chris Pool en este momento en la línea de llegada, formada entre una línea imaginaria que hay entre el comité de regatas y una baliza que está ahí abajo a sotavento. Como vemos, viento, las banderas, pues rozando el cero. Difícil la prueba. Rocco se queda con el 0% de regatas ganadas. Y bueno, Chris Pool, imbatible, sigue imbatible en todo el campeonato. Lleva 8 de 8. casi nada. Y bueno, mientras esperamos, voy a poner un poquito de música mientras esperamos a, a que pongan la siguiente entrada, al siguiente enfrentamiento.
ago with Neville Whitty. So it's great to see that things haven't changed much. The boats are still the same, and you've got world-class competitors out here from all over the world. And the event that they put on here it's one of the best I've seen in the world.
Yeah, fantastic. So Neville Whitty is also my coach, just happens to be. We've also got Tiana, who was here commentating yesterday, the daughter of Nev. So it seems like a bit of a family affair. So tell us, why are you out of here? So you usually sail in Sydney. So what brings you to Long Beach?
Yeah, last week we had an Etchell regatta down in San Diego. The Worlds are there next year in May 26. So we've just finished that regatta, and we have another one coming up in about a week's time. So we're going to try and win 3 in a row, and so it's going to be extremely important to spend a lot of time on that race course and racing against some of the best sailors, from around the world, and that's just a big part of. It's very different conditions to what we're used to, and we're loving it.
Fantastic. So it's incredible to see. I mean, going for a 3P on the Etchell World Championships in a row is an incredible feat. So explain what the difference is between these boats we hear, the Catalina 37s, and what the Etchell is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Etchells, for most of the sailors around the world, it's a one design class. There's a weight limit, which is 285 kilos. And as long as you're under that, with either 3 or 4 people. But it's a very technical boat. It's a very physical boat. So not to say that these aren't, but the hiking on the boat is extremely important, your sail selection and the sail development, and then really how the 3 of us can work together. So we've been lucky enough to when we won our 24, we had Richie Allenson sailing with us. And he came from a crew. He was sailing with Ian Murray and Colin Beashall. And in 2019, we both went into the last race again, fighting it out for the World Championship. They beat us, and then since then, Richie then joined our crew in 24, and we were successful. And then he's moved on to some different ventures. So we selected Ben, and were successful again. And he's going to join us next year as well in May 26. So the more racing we can do together, the stronger opportunity we'll have of having another attack at this next year.
Yeah, wow, sounds amazing. So remind me, is your crewmate on Chris Paul's team?
He is on Chris Paul's team, and I think they're doing pretty well. I think they've only maybe dropped 1 race so in the last couple of days. So yeah, they've got a little bit of a journey ahead of them as they move into the semi-finals and finals.
It sounds amazing. Sounds like you've got an absolute amazing crew. But so talk to us about Comanche. So what is it?
Yeah, I mean, Comanche, 100-foot boat, weighs over 30 tonne, master's, well over 100 foot, 150 feet high. Whole boat's carbon fibre. It's just, it's an epic racing yacht. And it was in Australia. It was on its way back to Europe. And I spoke to Matt Allen, who'd won the race 4 times before, and I said, look, it's going to be good for the sport, good for yachting, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and it's a big challenge. Obviously, sailing smaller boats, myself, it's just a beast, absolute beast, and if you don't control it, it's going to control you. And so we were unsuccessful last year. We retired from the race. So we ripped the mainsail, and we had quite a comfortable lead. I think we were about 3 or 4 hours ahead of the race record. So it's unfinished business for us. So we're going to do it again, and it's the 80th year of the Sydney to Hobart. So that's something very special as well. But it's just an iconic yacht, and it's fun to sail, but it's you got to be really careful with that boat, otherwise it's going to bite you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I sail in Sydney Harbour as well, and sometimes we're out training and Comanche goes by, and it is an absolute miracle. It looks a little bit smaller than it does in real life on TV, but I tell you what, that boat compared to my little Elliott 7 that we're training for match racing looks incredible. I mean, you guys are doing 20-plus knots around the harbour, aren't you?
Yeah, we try and race it like an Etchell around the harbour, basically. So and try and, yeah, that's a lot of fun. And we're going to do the same again this year.
That sounds absolutely amazing. It'd be fantastic to see Comanche back on the start line for next year's iconic Sydney to Hobart regatta. So what are your plans into lead up? So I know that it's such a big regatta. Are there any smaller regattas that you're using as like a lead up to the Sydney Hobart?
Yeah, they have a number of, there's a race called Tollgate, Bird Island, Cabbage Tree. They're all overnight races. So they're extremely important for us of pulling the crew together and all getting used to the boat. But we're going to go with pretty well the same crew as we had last year. So it's once we step back on board, we should be able to pick up where we left off, and we're getting some new sails, and I think we're going to have about 6 or 7 maxis this year in the Sydney to Hobart. So it's going to be very special. But the lead-up races are extremely important just for us to understand the boat more and gel as a crew.
Wow, it's absolutely amazing. So I've got one last question for you. So you're juggling a maxi doing the Sydney to Hobart, and you're juggling an Etchells campaign. How do you do it?
I just love one design racing, which most sailors do, and it's great when you can get 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 boats on the start line all together, and it's just wonderful to be able to look down the start line and see, Olympians, gold medalists, world champions, America's Cup sailors, and it's, we all tend to compete against the same people. But to then move on to it's just a new challenge to race Comanche, and so it's just finding the balance. But I much prefer the one design sailing than the bigger boats, but it's the challenge.
Awesome. Thank you very much, James, and best of luck for your Sydney Hobart campaign and your Etchells World Championships.
Yeah, great job here. Congratulations.
When it comes to one of the most important decisions of your life, your future, your freedom, your legacy, selling your business shouldn't be complicated. At Plethora Businesses, we help business owners sell smarter, faster, and for the highest value they deserve. From evaluation to closing, we're with you every step of the way. Visit PlethoraBusinesses.com to start your next chapter.
$1974, are those numbers right?
I think my parents joined in 1970, and I actually got my own membership in 1977. I started working on Congressional Cup, just a little grom on the waterfront, setting marks in 1974. When the regatta was sailed in the in the latter 60s and early 70s, if you were a sailor around these parts, especially on Alameda Bay, you couldn't help but see the big boats come into town and the practices in the afternoon, and it was really alluring to come out here and watch it.
Yeah, and I asked you this the other day. So back then, you didn't have a fleet of identical Catalina 37s, right? Those weren't here yet. So you guys would get boats from other places. Tell me how that part worked back then.
Well, you know, you and I were talking the other day, and I think it got a lot of laughs because procuring an identical fleet of 10 boats is what the Congressional Cup's done since 1965. And in 1965, they were Cal 40s, and you know, think about it. You get 10 boats, then you've got to equalize them, which really takes days, and then you bring them out here, and we had the Cal 40s, and we had the Columbia 50s, and we had the Erickson 39s, and then the Catalina 38s, and we had such a good relationship with Catalina yachts in the mid 80s, well, actually early 80s, going into the 90s. The Catalina 37 was developed and basically addressed all the issues that were wrong with the 38. Frank Butler, Jerry Douglas, and the team at Catalina, along with guidance from Bruce Brown representing our club and Dick Seward, made this hybrid boat that you're looking at right now, the Catalina 37, to replace the Catalina 38 so that we wouldn't have to borrow owners' boats, thrash them for 5 days, and then return them on Sunday morning politely.
What's the worst damage that we ever had to one of these owners' boats back then when you were, you know, you had to say, sorry, we pick something. Tell me, what do you remember from back then?
Well, you know, yacht racing rules, and especially when you have match racing and on-the-water umpiring, kind of prevent really, really nasty, hairy collisions that can, you know, actually take a boat right out of the regatta. But we've had everything from, I mean, you name it, it's happened to these boats. It's mostly small stuff, but boats have been T-boned. Subsequently, you see the rubber piece on the bow of the boat. I mean, that helped out a ton. Every once in a while, and you know, our rules master, Kirk Brown, can attest to this, every once in a while you get into a collision that just cannot be avoided. The boats hook up, and you just got to kind of close your eyes and hope.
And hope, yeah. And so back then, when we first introduced the Catalina 37s, was the pier in place yet? I don't think it was. Is that correct?
Was the pier what?
Was the pier out here when the 37s were first introduced?
Oh, yeah. Gosh, the pier's been here for years. But we made it an official viewing venue in 1995. And, you know, we've really never, well, it was actually 1994 when we dragged a team out here, and you know, we just felt like it had a lot of merit as a viewing spot and as a venue.
And I remember, and rest in peace to Dougie Pye, I got to interview him last year, and I remember he told me that way back in the day, you guys would go out and race these boats. There was no spectators. You could come back and make up any story you wanted almost and just to describe this event. But can you tell me what has bringing spectators into the Congressional Cup done to the sport, done to the Cup, done to the entire atmosphere of this 60-year-long event? What do the spectators mean to be so close to the racers?
Well, I think it's like sitting courtside at a Laker game or on the sidelines at a Super Bowl, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm a sailing aficionado. But to me, I mean, it's a major sport, and this is basically like a playoff game or even a final. And to be able to walk out to the end of the pier and look right into the cockpit of these boats and see basically professional sailors trying to make a paycheck and establish themselves for the next invite so they can go and make a paycheck. Certainly it's for the love of the sport, but professional sailing, which is what this regatta is all about, is like every other sport, it's the money.
And I will add one thing to that, and that is that in no other professional sport can you sit courtside at the Laker game and then go back with all your buddies to sit with everyone you've just watched play, have a drink, talk stories, give them a handshake, take a photo, let your kids meet them. I think it's so incredible that all 10 boats out here and all their sailors come back to the club every single day of the Congressional Cup. We get to mingle with them. They're our friends. Like, I recognize faces year after year. Now I'm a little more involved now than I was when I started 10 years ago, but these guys that come here from around the world are so friendly to us and do such a great job to make sure that they are part of our family. And I'm so appreciative that you and everyone at the Yacht Club over the years have built this environment where we get to have them and they want to come here. And that's what I think is the coolest part about this. Can you agree with that? Do you have any personal stories of sailors you've had a drink with back at the club?
Well, I think that every story that is told, like the way you just told it, for your personal experiences, I mean, we all have them. I've often thought when I look at Steve Ballmer sitting on the sidelines at a Laker game, the difference between him as an owner and the difference between, you know, our sport of sailing, where you actually are, you know, kind of hunkering down with the professionals in the sport. These guys, if this were basketball, are no different than Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, and they're going to be back at the club bellied up, talking stories from the day, and it's just the way that our sport is. I don't know why that is, but I would imagine it's why we all are around this sport, because it's just different.
It is. That's a perfect way to put it. It's so different. We are a family, and I think in any non-mainstream sport, you are family members with the people that share the same love and attention and dedication to something that you're involved with. But sailing feels like a special, special bond. You know, these guys, I've spent the week with Peter Wickwire, and he's telling me stories about different sailors he's raced around the world with. And it's just so cool that they go their separate ways. They come back together maybe a month later, maybe 6 months later, and they're buddies. They pick up right where they left off, but they get to incorporate us as the host towns, if you will, or yacht clubs. We're just part of the fun every time. They come back maybe every couple years, and they pick up where they left off. And I think that's pretty neat. So, yeah.
Well, you kind of said it all right there. I mean, everybody's got their reason for being involved in the sport that they're passionate about. For us in this booth, and I think for everybody on the pier, we're passionate about a few things. First of all, boats, power boats, sailboats, being on the water, competition on the water. The great thing about the Congressional Cup is it's one-on-one, mano-a-mano sailing, so it takes a monetary factor out of it. You can't buy a fast Catalina 37 in this regatta. You've got to be assigned one, just like all the other 9 skippers. You can't buy a faster jib. Everybody's jib is the same. And, you know, it takes that factor out of it. But for whatever reason, even on an overcast day like this with no wind, I mean, I think it's relaxing and a number of different good things just being here.
Yeah, and, you know, you said it. You can't buy a faster boat. And something we talked with the skippers this morning, they rotate boats every single day. They're in a different numbered boat each of the 5 days of the regatta. This morning, Randy Smith, our PRO, presented a list of which boat numbers have won which matches over the course of the last three and a half days now. And so the skippers themselves get to decide which boats will be used for the semifinals and the finals. They're the same boat. They're the same boat, but it is in their heads, right? It's very superstitious of which boats have won more races or not. So that's part of the fun, I think, is you can't make the boat faster. It's up to your skill set, right? Your skill set, probably a little bit of luck, but as we've seen with at least Chris Poole this weekend, that skill set keeps him near the front in almost every match.
You know, when you're walking around out here on the pier venue, you see a lot of Long Beach Yacht Club volunteers carrying clipboards, and they're writing, and they're very intently looking at the ocean, even when actually nothing's happening. But those are the people that are keeping these stats. You know, they're every single tack. What boat has won? What boat has lost? It's amazing. We've got stats upon stats upon stats. But at the end of the day, if some skipper felt that somebody had a faster boat out of the 10, you know, the stats, the numbers don't lie. They'll tell you that these boats are about as equal as manufactured boats can be, and they've been that way for quite a while now.
And I think I want to give a shameless plug to the Sailing Foundation. Long Beach Sailing Foundation maintains these boats. You know, and I'm sure you're aware of this. I don't know if everybody at home is. For sure, those of you on the pier are. We as members and neighborhood community members here in Long Beach get to race these boats all year long. There's events a couple times a month on weekends. In the summer months, we have 18 weeks straight of on the water on these 37s. So these aren't just used for the Congressional Cup. That's obviously the main highlight of them. But these boats are workhorses. They're used all year long. The Sailing Foundation spends hours and hours maintaining them. It's a pretty incredible thing. And I know that you, as being involved back when you were a pioneer of helping to give this to us. So as a newer sailor, I thank you for that, and I thank everyone at the club that donates some time here. And we are sitting here in a little bit of a holding pattern. It's light wind. We're here at day number 4 of the 60th annual Congressional Cup. I've got Drew Satorino sitting next to me. Can you give me one last parting story, if you will, about some history about the Congressional Cup?
Well, you know, this history, I was thinking about this last night because you asked me for a parting story the other day, and you know, this might have been the one that I wanted to reach for, and I just forgot about it. But you know, because we're kind of in a little bit of a rainy weather pattern, it made me think about the fact, and I can't remember the exact year, but I think it was about, must have been about 74, 75. But this story relates to Ted Turner. I think most people know who Ted Turner is. You know, just a very wealthy businessman in the United States, and has been that way for decades, but he's also a great sailor, and he won the Congressional Cup, I believe, in 76, and then he went on to win the America's Cup in 77. But I remember, and he's been a member of the Long Beach Yacht Club, I think, since 73, just a full member. But I remember coming out of the club, and I was boat operations chair that year, so I was responsible for the boats, and I was real worried about the weather. It was raining. In fact, it was actually pouring on a Wednesday night, and I was walking out the front door of the club. There were very few people there, and all of a sudden a limo pulled up right out in front of the Long Beach Yacht Club. It was pouring rain, and I thought, gosh, you know, this is a little bit odd. Maybe they're lost. But Ted Turner was still up in the bar, and I don't know who he was drinking with, but he was still up in the bar. And out of the limo comes Rod Stewart, the singer Rod Stewart.
The Rod Stewart.
Yeah, the Rod Stewart. And not a guy that you see rolling into yacht clubs all that often. And also had Ronnie Wood with him, who's another member of the Rolling Stones. And they wanted to meet Rod Stewart wanted to meet Ted Turner because Ted Turner had bought his music catalog, and I think in some deal Ted had now bought Time Warner or something, but this was going to be Rod Stewart's new boss. So he came rolling into the Long Beach Yacht Club, went up, met Ted Turner, nobody was around, a few staff, and that kind of struck me as an odd moment and one that comes to mind.
Okay, I'm going to blame you for this then. Why didn't you guys sell Rod Stewart on joining the yacht club? Because we could have had a lot of fun parties with Rod Stewart in our yacht club.
God, you know, it was so weird in those days because you'd see Ted Turner drinking like, you know, he just did that in the Long Beach Yacht Club every night. And he attracted a lot of people like that. And frankly, you know, to me, Congressional Cup's such a big event that Rod Stewart showing up wasn't that big of a surprise
Just
to
another
me.
everyday situation.
And I certainly wasn't going to go up and talk to him about joining the yacht club, but thanks,
Okay.
next time.
I'll do it next time I see him. Bring him around. Okay, so thank you so much to Drew Satorino. A wealth of knowledge. We have this movie theater back at the club. We're going to show you guys a little bit of footage from the 50th anniversary Congressional Cup as we are in a holding pattern here. Day number 4, the 60th annual Congressional Cup. Please stick tight. If you're on the pier, find something to eat or drink. We'll be back as soon as possible. In the meantime, check out this footage from 10 years ago.
The international city of Long Beach, in cooperation with the Long Beach Yacht Club, initiates the first match race on the West Coast. The first Congressional Cup. The cup is deeded to the Long Beach Yacht Club by the Congress of the United States, sponsored by Congressman Craig Hosmer and Senator Thomas Kuechel.
You know, every yacht club wants to set themselves aside as being star champions or America's Cup champions. Long Beach Yacht Club developed this match racing regatta.
The America's Cup, the Canada Cup, so
My first Congressional Cup experience was in 1965 when I got a call from Don Leadham, who said, "We're putting on a match racing event. We'd like to invite you."
Barney Flam, representing the Santa Monica Yacht Club, has one of his toughest races at the start against the East Coast representative from Larchmont, New York, Arthur Knapp from Sheboygan. Flam, a well-known skipper on the West Coast, is racing the skipper of the America's Cup, Weatherby.
We had a number of Cal 40 owners that were interested. As a result, we decided to use the Cal 40s.
In those days, the Cal 40 was a new boat, and they tried to have one representative from each yacht club. It was quite informal.
The early years, the crews seemed to be more interested in getting to beat each other and pulling shenanigans on each other and things of that sort.
Jerry Driscoll sets the crew to work. The Blue Marlin seems sluggish, something dragging. They put a man over, but it's too late. The first start is coming up. They settle down.
They used to have us racing from the 10-minute gun. You would have two competing teams in the starting area at the same time. So it got to where people were maneuvering for position maybe 20 minutes before your start. And of course, the crews got pretty tired.
Willis Boyd comments on his boat.
I believe my boat is one of the heaviest in the group, as I have the only raised deck and I have quite a bit of equipment aboard.
At that point in time, we took the position that anything you could do to make the boat go faster was okay.
They had different sails, they had different weights, different options on the boat, and they weren't equal.
And as a result, Jerry Driscoll from San Diego was in a position to make a very, very fast Cal 40.
Jerry Driscoll won the first two Congressional Cups without losing a race.
I remember way back, Barney Flam was the guy we took out on the very first Catalina 38s. And 10 Long Beach Yacht Club members bought those boats with the condition that they make them available to the club for Con Cup.
When we had the Catalina 38s, we sailed those boats with the bow pulpit and stern pulpit and lifelines, and they overhung the boat, and in the close racing, they would frequently get bent out of shape a bit.
My job, when I was 20-something, was to support this program, be here when they needed spare parts.
Jerry would be down here at 7 o'clock the next morning, and that's maybe an hour and a half drive with whatever parts we needed to put the boats back together to get going.
Bruce Brown was working his way up to become chair, and Bruce and I were having lunch upstairs and said, there's got to be a better way to do this than taking privately owned boats. Every year, turn them into one design boats. Just is a struggle. We actually built one prototype boat and brought it down here one year. Tooled the boat, built the boat, launched the boat, brought it down to look at, and a couple of key sailors said, that's close, but it's just not it. So we chucked it and started with a new boat.
As a result of that, he learned what they wanted to do when they built the 37s to make the boat bulletproof.
Yachting has been very good to Catalina Yacht, and I felt that I wanted to do something to show my appreciation from Catalina Yachts. I realized that the Congressional Cup was something of the future, so we designed the 37-footer.
Through the generosity of Mr. Butler, he gave us 11 beautiful yachts to run the event.
They held up well, and they still look very contemporary, even though they're now 20 years old, which I think is a real testament to the design of these boats.
Since we got the 37s, it has been a boat really based upon the talent and expertise of the skipper and crew rather than the design of the boat.
Finally, I started getting more talented people.
Well, one of the great things about the Congressional Cup, of course, you want to perform well on the water, but it's essential if you're a skipper to have a really good speech at the dinner.
Good evening again, everyone. It's great to be invited back again this year. I enjoyed myself so much 2 years ago that in the last 2 years I spent about 18 months in the United States, so I'm kind of getting happier and happier. So,
I'm thrilled to be here. At the Long Beach Yacht Club has done such a terrific job with this event over the years.
It's great. I really came back. I was surprised by the invitation because I haven't been very active lately, and this is really a top-notch league for America's Cup or Australia Cup hopefuls, and I'm kind of a has-been. But it's better to be a has-been than it never was. And one good thing about the Congressional Cup is nobody from overseas has ever won it yet, and even if they do, they're not going to be able to take it home.
A couple days ago, I had lunch with Ted Turner, and that was the good news. The bad news is, you know, that some of the people here really know how to sail, and they're at the top of the sport. And I understand that, you know, Harold Cudmore is one of the best paid professionals, and he makes $100 for an event like this.
Dennis was worried about the age problem, but Dennis, don't worry. Ted and you and I don't look so bad when we compare ourselves with a jury. As Dennis said, there's no free lunches. I'm about to pay for that one.
Now, you're one of the judges. What do the judges do here at Congressional Cup? You're out on the water, I think, in the judges' boat. What do you look at out there?
Well, Phil, the one thing that we're looking for is to see that the committee is doing the job that it should be doing. And the principal thing that the judges are involved with is to see that every competitor gets a fair break.
There's a collision right there. Boats touched, and Cudmore's pointing again to his protest flag and saying, "I'm doing it again."
Prior to umpiring, we would have these god-awful protests, and there'd be arguments. And I'll never forget one year, I think Dennis Conner had 4 or 5 protests against Ted Turner in the same race. And these protests went on for hours and hours. And at the end, in the men's room, Turner and Conner had some very sharp words exchanged with each other.
And the two of them go out, and Arthur Knapp on the committee goes out. Well, Arthur comes back in, and we said, "Arthur, what did you do?" He said, "I grabbed them both by the scruff of the neck, banged their heads together, and said, 'Any more of this, and we're going to throw you out of the series.'"
And watching that, and having been on one of the boats, I realized that this is flawed, and the press is there, it's no good. What we need are umpires, just like we have in any other sport. And the Long Beach Yacht Club was one of the first to get umpiring going in a formal way that actually counted. And that was so successful that when Tom Eamon became the executive director of the America's Cup for the '92 Cup match, they instituted umpiring for the America's Cup, and it was a real breakthrough, and it made for instant justice because we didn't have to sit through the protest.
Welcome to the Long Beach Yacht Club, home of the Ficker Cup, the all-important qualifying series to determine the final competitor spot available in next week's Congressional Cup, the most prestigious Grade 1 match race in the United States.
The Ficker Cup is a good breeding ground for the younger sailors. And we've seen some pretty good people come up through the ranks.
2 legs later, and the story is still the same. Simone Federese and crew have won the Ficker Cup and have earned a spot in the Congressional Cup.
I think one of the nifty things about the Congressional Cup is there's a wide range of ages of people that have actually won that regatta or been in the top 3. So in a nice way, the Congressional Cup connects the generations.
My name's Rod Davis. I've competed both as a skipper and a crew, something in the range of 15 times.
This is Congressional Cup number 13 as a skipper and 15 in total. Yeah, I just can't stay away, I guess.
My name is Steve Flam. I've done 27 Con Cups, and I've seen the whole evolution of the event.
You know, it's actually, the rest of the sport's kind of evolved around it.
You know, I grew up, reading about Dave Perry into the Rods and the Dennises and the Turners. It was match racing in this country, so that's pretty nice heritage for that event to have.
Well, the Congressional Cup was the king of all the match racing events. It always has been.
Back then we raced offshore. Of course, we're racing back along the pier now, so that's a big difference. and the format's changed. Now we do round robins and then knockouts.
The Catalina 37s were a big step forward. It was very even boats across the field, and the boats were ideally suited for match racing.
It's still 10 great teams. They want to do well. They also want to make sure they respect the Congressional Cup.
As I got into match racing, Con Cup always stood out there as one of those famous ones I'd heard about. So to actually go out there and finally win it was pretty special.
Fortunate enough to win the Congressional Cup twice, two of the biggest boats in my sailing career.
Winning is special, and getting to go to the dinner and getting your crimson blazer was something I always remember.
It has all come down to this, the final match here in the Congressional Cup.
So the finals the year that I won was really unusual. I'm sure there's not another one like it.
This match is getting closer and closer. Law keeps tacking just in front.
Yeah, a couple of years ago we had a great race with Dean Barker and his guys.
The last time these two faced each other in the finals of a match race, it was the America's Cup. Coots went on to win. This time Barker wants a chance at him.
It was a one-race final because we'd run out of time on the last day.
The final leg was going to determine the Congressional Cup.
Led around the top mark and split our spinnaker, and Dennis Durgan passed us down the run.
The wind was, uncharacteristically shifty.
The breeze is shifting 180 degrees. Both spinnakers are collapsing, and we're halfway down the run to the finish.
We were still behind, but those guys turned and sailed off for the big right-hand shift. It wasn't there anymore.
I think there were more black flags thrown in that final maybe than in history.
Unfortunately for us, we couldn't quite get in front in that race, and Dean and his guys won.
So it was obviously very nice to go out and beat Russell in the final. It was Moose's 4th win, and he'd managed to do that in 4 different decades, so it was quite a special moment.
I think it was after the second race, one of the people who were in charge just came up alongside and said, you do realize you do not have your damage deposit anymore, right? It's like, yeah, we understand, sorry about that.
Do I have a favorite story that I can tell you on film here?
Yeah, we have a lot of great memories, but of course the year when we won was a special year for us.
We're going up the last beat, last race. Every time we tack, we hear this kind of brrr, boom. Somebody's a bottle of rum in one of the back lazarettes. That was pretty much gone by the time we hit the shore.
So I remember going underneath the fireboat with the spray. I remember Katie Banks giving us some champagne at the dock.
I remember guys jumping off the spreaders into the water, people in the water, hats in the water, women in the water.
Francesco Bruni, you've done it. After finishing second in the Congressional Cup last year, you have come from behind. The Congressional Cup is now yours.
We are completely drunk. I repeat myself, completely drunk.
And I vaguely remember going up on stage.
Well, the first time I slipped down the Crimson Blazer, it's a little bit of a blur.
I looked up and Rat, one of my crew members, the name says it all, he was doing stage dives off the bar.
And Ted shows up and he's got 12 trumpeters with long trumpets with flags under the bottom.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I've never swung off a chandelier in Long Beach, but not to say it didn't happen. We were certainly having a good time.
We actually lost Jerry Kirby for 2 days after that. Nobody knew where he was. He got lost in the airport, and I think he's been found today, but I'm not 100% sure.
And then I remember waking up on an aeroplane in Chicago and the stewardess knocking me on the shoulder saying, "Sir, you have to get off the plane now and clean your mess up."
We've got a few stories, about being taken out by the hostesses, and then the next day we've got no idea where the car is. I won't mention any names. Susan Mackenbach.
Now, we were in the jacuzzi till 2 o'clock in the morning and sailing the next day.
The members know that the sailors are there to not only race but have a good time, and certainly in Long Beach I've enjoyed many good times.
And looking back on it now, it's still very special, and the people that sail with me, I see the pictures of them, and they're friends to this day.
For sure, a great achievement to win here. This is a so prestigious event. When you have a look at the list of the past winners, you have only big stars of the match racing. So really, it's amazing to have now Mathieu Richard on this list.
I felt very privileged to have been included, and having a chance to win the event really launched my America's Cup career.
It's gone down in history as being one that you have to go to.
In his next match, all guns are blazing. 2 flags! The penalty is offset. Now Bruni has to tack. What a move! Richard drops his head and goes head to win. Out of bound. The teams are going to go head to win with the spinnakers up and spin around as Federace meets Brady on starboard. Meanwhile, downwind sparks are flying. Penalty for Minoprio, head to wind. Spinnaker's up in the air, Hetzel's in the water.
It's now a dead standstill. We've been sitting here for 2 minutes flat.
He pulls off a job just inches from the pier, less than a minute to go.
That was ridiculous.
Two blue flag. Folks, the penalty goes to Coots. Law has tacked. Effectively, he can't finish the turn.
They are now past the finish line on the outside. Coots is tacked. Now Law's got his bow in there. Wham! Another collision, and they're hitting the committee boat. 2 flags for Coots. All Law has to do is bear away to win this race, while Russell Coots spins yet another circle.
I think the Congressional Cup is special because of the history of it. You know, it's been around for a long time. Many great sailors have participated in the regatta.
For me, and any sailor that goes and competes at the Congressional Cup, you know it's going to be first rate from start to finish, and that itself says something about the quality of the competition, quality of the people at the Long Beach Yacht Club and the organization that they set up, and finally the quality of the racing. We've seen a lot of match races in the United States come and go, but the Congressional Cup has always been the stalwart event.
We have 1,000 regular members, we have 110 associate members, and we are extremely proud of our legacy. We're very proud of what we're doing.
All right, I'm back on the pier again as we're getting closer to going racing. I've got a very special guest, someone I'm interested to talk to. This is Jordan Rees, the coach of Cole Tapper's team from Australia.
Bueno, pues nosotros, pues yo desde aquí voy a cortar, estuvo espectacular el reportaje de la Congressional Cup, la historia, muy bonito, todas las figuras que aparecieron en este torneo, para quitarse el sombrero, 60 aniversario de este Congressional Cup, por ahí ha pasado pues toda la creme de la creme, tanto medallas olímpicas, campeones del mundo, Copa Américas, bueno, ha sido espectacular, disfruté muchísimo yo, sobre todo viendo este reportaje que hicieron de la Congressional Cup. Y nosotros, pues bueno, pues en vista de lo acontecido, pues vamos a cortar la emisión a la espera a ver si mañana pues podemos ver ya la final, porque estos, bueno, pues tienen ahora las semifinales y decíamos que tal como estaba en la clasificación era Chris Poole el que se pasaba, Eric Monin, Johnny Bertson, Jan Garreta y faltan 2 más que pueden ser David Hood y Paul Hudson. Los demás, el francés, bueno, está el francés, sí, ya está, el francés pasa, Jan Garreta con Mathieu Richard, ya lo vimos en el reportaje, ha sido que aparecía dentro a bordo. Bueno, ha sido espectacular. Nos vemos mañana. Un saludo a todos, buenas noches.